first of all, thank you very much for finally coming and agreeing, because it's so difficult to catch hold of you.
Not true.
That's true. I had to wait for you for at least 2 months. I had to wait for you and for this interaction with him. And I promise you, it's going to be nothing political. It's just going to be fun and get one side. I know you're not scared of politics, but to get that side of you which normally people don't get to see. But this time round, I'm not going to be taking the lead so much. I have these 2 young boys. One of them from your state. That's Edwin. Come, Edwin. He's your. So Edwin is from.
Yes.
Okay. And that's Nikhil Rathore.
Nikhil Rathore. He's not from my state.
No, he's not from your state.
Like Nikhil Rathore.
Okay, so they have some couple of questions, random things they want to ask you. So over to you, Nikhil. Okay, Nikhil, you want to hold the mic.
Hi sir. So it's generally when we begin our questions, these are. I've seen a lot of interviews. I actually saw around 12 interviews before coming for this interview.
12 interviews of mine?
Yes, 12 interviews of yours. And most of them were in English, and people keep asking you about English. We were trying to make it a little different. Less of politics and maybe in Hindi, because I see a lot of recent appearances of yours where you've been talking in Hindi. So from here on.
He was contesting as a for the Congress president.
तो हिंदी में बात करते हैं. I'm sure you'll be comfortable in Hindi.
देखिए comfortable तो क्या बोलूँ, आप कोशिश कीजिए, अगर मुझे समझने आए तो मैं बताऊंगा.
तो to start with, मैं मतलब सबसे पहले easy questions, generic questions. You've been in Mumbai, you've been in Kolkata, you've stayed outside India. When you came back, you also stayed for some time. You've stayed in Kerala also, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I have a home in Kerala, but it's locked up when I'm not there.
So out of all these states, which is your favorite state?
Obviously, it's Kerala.
Let me hold it for you. So you want to just check up on it. So.
Now, obviously, it's Kerala because that's my home state, and that's where I genuinely believe that we have set a very good example for the rest of India to see. I'll tell you, Nikhil, if you really think about how Keralites have managed to live together so beautifully, it's one place where 47% of the population are not Hindu. They're sort of quote-unquote minorities, but no one has a minority complex. Everyone feels the same as everyone else. It's astonishing. I wish the rest of India would be like that.
No, Bengal is like that. You cannot say that about my state.
I don't know if that's entirely the case. I love Bengal. I've lived in Kolkata in my high school years. My parents continued there for many more years after I'd left, so I used to go back and visit them. So I love Bengal. I mean, एक तो बांग्ला बोलते पारे आप ना होंगे, किंतु
Okay, हिंदी का कुछ पूछना है निखिल?
हिंदी एक रैपिड फायर करते हैं. These are generic questions, not Hindi questions, but इसका रैपिड फायर का I'll give you 2 options. Whichever you want to select, just select. So my first option would be again मुंबई और कोलकाता को दिमाग में रखते हुए पुचका और पानीपुरी.
पुचका, कोई शक नहीं इसके बारे में. लेकिन दिल्ली आके तो गोलगप्पा भी खाऊंगा.
बंगाली मार्केट में दिखते हैं अक्सर.
हाँ.
तो अगर दिल्ली की बात कर रहे हैं तो दिल्ली की बात करते हुए बटर नान या इडलीज.
इडली तो दुनिया में कहीं भी मैं खाने के लिए तैयार हूँ, कहीं भी. तो बटर नान मुझे पसंद है. और जब ब्रेकफास्ट की बात होती है तो इडली खाऊंगा. अगर रात की बात होती है तो मैं शायद बटर नान खाऊंगा.
तो मैंने सुना है कि आप करीबन 6 या 7 इडली एटलीस्ट खा जाते हैं ब्रेकफास्ट में. बटर नान भी उतने ही खा पाएंगे?
नहीं, बिल्कुल नहीं. एक पे रुका. इडली भी मैं आजकल कम कर रहा हूँ जरा सा, क्योंकि अनफॉर्चुनेटली मेरे उम्र में भी सब दिखाई देता है.
तो बुक्स के अलावा आप टीवी भी थोड़ा बहुत देख लेते होंगे?
YouTube? बहुत कम, क्योंकि समय नहीं मिलता ना, टाइम नहीं मिलता. तो इसलिए मैं ट्रेडमिल पे जब जाता हूँ हर रोज, उस वक्त मैं क्रिकेट हाइलाइट्स देखता हूँ. टीवी पे कुछ और देखने का वक्त नहीं है.
तो कॉमेडी की अगर बात करें,
घोष के प्रोग्राम्स में नहीं देखता.
तो कॉमेडी की अगर बात करें, वीरदास या कपिल शर्मा?
देखिए, वीरदास तो मैं कुछ सालों से देख रहा हूँ. वो अंग्रेजी में भी करता है तो नेचुरली शायद. लेकिन मैं कपिल शर्मा के खिलाफ नहीं हूँ. मैं जानता हूँ कि बहुत लोग को खुशी भी दिए हुए हैं, लेकिन मैं वीरदास को बेहतर जानता हूँ बस.
अच्छा, बॉलीवुड या फिल्म्स की तरफ अगर जाए तो मोहनलाल, रजनीकांत या शाहरुख खान?
मोहनलाल, लेकिन शाहरुख खान भी मैं अच्छा मानता हूँ. मैं अभी पठान देखी.
Shahrukh Khan, you can. I love Mohanlal also. I don't know what to. I watch more Mallu movies. Malayalam. Okay, Malayalam. I keep correcting. I watch a lot of Malayalam movies, which you don't, I believe.
I don't have time
you
for
don't
watching.
have time
That's the
for
only
that.
problem. But no, I like Shahrukh also personally. मैं अभी पठान देखे आया. अभी नहीं, करीब 1 महीने 6 हफ्ते पहले जब वो पहले निकला, मैं अच्छा लगा, बहुत अच्छा लगा.
So Shahrukh is, I know.
पठान जैसे बॉलीवुड एक्स्ट्रावेगेंस मेरे बचपन में भी ऐसे होते थे कि आप दिमाग घर को छोड़ के आए, उसके बाद देख लीजिए. जस्ट कम फॉर एंजॉयमेंट. बहुत मजा आया.
I've watched it 4 times. First day, first show.
ठीक.
Okay.
Shahrukh Khan is Pallavi's favorite वैसे. And I know she won't ask you, but you are also one of her favorites. She wanted to.
I went to Shahrukh Khan's film out of solidarity actually, because वो जब उस वक्त कुछ राजनीतिक नॉनसेंस चल रहा था, तो मैं सोचा कि इस वक्त हम पैसे खर्च करके टिकट खरीदने चाहिए उनके लिए, तो ये इसलिए गए.
But like Shahrukh,
मामा को नहीं ले गए, किसी को ले गए, मेरी बहन को ले गए. मैं अमेरिका से आई थी, उनको ले गए मैंने.
Shahrukh has this step that he does for everyone, and you know what I am gonna ask now. So there's this hair flip that everyone talks about.
देखिए, अनफॉर्चुनेटली मैंने हेयर कट करके आया हूँ, तो देखिए कुछ जाता नहीं है. अगर आप कुछ और इंतजार करते, कुछ हफ्ते के बाद ऐसे कर सकता हूँ.
But I think that was enough for Pallavi to get enamored.
Yeah.
And well, Pallavi and I, we have multiple running jokes about how Bengalis and Malayalis, find it very hard to get together
And
but
resist each other.
Resist each other. Do you feel the same way?
Very true. Very true. In fact, my first wife was half Bengali.
Oh, okay.
So
Half
what is it
Kashmiri
about
and
Bengalis you think is so nice?
I think it's partially because both Malayalis and Bengalis are particularly argumentative. So they have that going for each other. They're also both heavily politicized. They are very prone to ideological inquiry, passions, commitments. Kerala and Bengal are 2 places in India where everything is political. Yeah. What you eat, what you read, what you wear, where you go, what you do, what entertainment you like, what sporting team you support, everything is political.
Exactly.
So, I mean, they're very similar people. Very similar.
I especially agree with your point about food. The whole fish factor. I think that comes into play.
I'm completely ruining it for you by confessing I'm vegetarian.
Yeah, I know you are.
But both on the Bengali side and the Kerala side, fish is.
Were you always vegetarian?
Ever since I was old enough to know what I was eating. I was about 5 years old, maybe.
But
6.
why?
My mother thinks it's because she took me to a butcher shop and I was revolted by what I saw.
Okay.
That's entirely possible. Dragging me along when she went shopping was an experience, and I do have a vivid recollection, which may or not be entirely sort of, sometimes memories get colored with time. But I do have a mental image of a butcher shop in Crawford Market with all these hanging carcasses dripping blood, and the butcher chopping the head off a chicken, which then, the body rolls around a bit like this, the chicken with his head cut off. And I said, you're supposed to eat this? No way. And I stuck to my guns. But there's also possibly some vague genetic predisposition, because I have been vegetarian all my life from that moment onwards. But since I married a woman who's half Bengali, half Kashmiri, meat eating on both sides, meat eating Brahmins on both sides. And very much so. And also we were in the West at that time. We were in America, Geneva in America. We decided early on to bring the kids up to eat everything. Because I said it's easier for them, they're living in the West. I'm not a proselytizer. I said for me it's a personal choice. There could be no more intimate decision than what to put into your mouth.
There's one word you use which I don't even know what it means.
Proselytizer. Somebody goes on converting. So I don't believe in converting. So to anything. So and therefore I said, Tika, I won't convert my children. Let them have what they want to have. And I never at any stage gave them any lectures or any emotional blackmail about eating meat, anything like that. But one day at age 7, my son, one of my twin boys, unilaterally decided to turn vegetarian. He looked more like me than his twin does. He behaves, thinks, functions many ways more like me. So there's some kind of recessive gene that's made its way down to him. And he's vegetarian now. They're in their 30s. They're completely different. One is a total carnivore, can't abide a meal without either fish or meat or ideally both. And one guy's a total vegetarian. Okay. So there's obviously some gene there too.
Okay, now continuing with the theme of, how Bengalis love Malayalis, I want to ask you a few questions about sports. Now, I know you are an avid cricket fan.
He's a sports buff also.
Okay. Now, India, I mean, you're not a big fan of Test cricket.
I am. I'm a much bigger fan of Test
Are
cricket
you
than
sure?
any other.
Because I've seen tweets of yours where you've criticized the run rate, the way the game goes.
Yeah, because a test match is like reading a novel. You just get immersed in it.
Exactly.
But the other thing is something short and sort of so you can quickly fling out
So
a
what
reaction.
do you prefer? Test match or T20
Anytime.
or ODI?
Anytime
What's
test match.
anytime test match?
Test matches. Anytime.
Okay.
In fact, my staff know this because with test matches, I make them record live as well as highlights. Live, I almost never watch. So after a while, it gets deleted. But if there's the highlights are not satisfactory enough or not detailed enough, I may go back to that segment of the live recorded to watch it. I'm
Okay.
that obsessed. Because, honestly, I often tell people in terms of reading, like a test match is like reading a novel. An ODI is like watching a movie or reading a short story. And T20 is like watching a sitcom. You have great fun with the last one, but you forget about it within 5 minutes after it's happened. The ODI slightly more memory, perhaps, because it took a whole day. But the test matches are the real experiences that linger.
So I have a question related to each
From
of
my
them.
childhood, by the way.
I have a question.
I saw my first test match when I was 7.
Oh wow, that young, huh? Where was it? I'm guessing Mumbai.
Bombay. Yeah, my
Alright.
father took me off to the Brabourne Stadium, as it was in those days, to watch the India's match against the English,
Okay.
1963-64.
Okay.
Amazing experience.
All right. So the World Test Championship final is coming up. India managed to qualify after beating Australia in this Test series that concluded recently. What's your take? Who do you think is going to win?
Look, I think Australia are clearly the favourites
Okay.
in the World Test Championship and in the ODI Championship. They just have a very, very good team again.
Okay.
They went through a bit of a slump for a couple of years, but now they're back at their peak. We are not bad, but we have a curious mixture of people whose talents are yet to fully flower.
Could you
And
elaborate on the curious bit?
No, the curious mixture is there are some who deserve their place in the side but are still raw talents, and they have great moments of success and brilliance and some moments of flabbergasting
Right,
failure.
right.
And then we have that such as Gill and Yadav. And then you've got people like Kohli who have phenomenal levels of achievement, who at their best are the world's best, but who are not always at their best these days. And so who's going to show up on the actual day and the actual match remains to be seen. I really hope that we will give a good account of ourselves. We have all the ingredients. We have an excellent pace attack, excellent spin bowling all-rounders, very good batsmen. But if they go there and they fail to perform, what can we do?
And why do you think that Australia will win the World Cup, the ODI, the 50-over World Cup, which is being played in India, where India are...
Well, we just saw the
comprehensively
reason
outpaced?
yesterday, right? We saw the reason in the Chennai, where the Australians in India defeated an Indian team on home ground. Even though they don't have their full strength team, they've got a couple of good players injured. But they just have all the ingredients, they've found the approach. And over a 3-match series, I think conclusively they were the better side.
Okay. What is your opinion about the older players in the team? I'm talking about the likes of Rohit Sharma, Virat Kohli.
I think they're great players. I mean, I think in their own domains, they've been absolutely superb. It's doubtful whether they are any more at their peak or whether they've begun a little bit of a slide down. I would love to be proven wrong. I mean,
Okay.
I'd love to see a big sort of daddy 100, as they call it, from both of them in the World Test final.
Okay.
But I've been a huge fan of not just Sharma and Kohli, also Pujara. But I would say all three are no longer at their very, very best. I
Okay.
think they're very good players still,
Okay.
and they certainly absolutely deserve their places in the Test side. No one's better. But is their very best? They're amongst the world's best and unplayable. Today, will we see that? I don't know. It remains to be
Okay.
seen. I'm actually going to watch one day of the match.
Oh.
The only day, because I find myself, by wonderful coincidence, invited by the JLF, the Jaipur Literary Festival people, for a literary festival at the British Library.
Okay.
If I go one day early, I catch the second day of the match.
Oh, nice.
So that's what I'm going to do.
All right. Sticking with sports, football. Now, Kerala has a huge fan following for football. I mean, it's borderline fanatical. Are you a football fan?
No,
Not at all?
my sons are football obsessives, football tragics. They in fact, when their babies were born, they put them in Arsenal
Arsenal
t-shirts.
jerseys.
So I mean, they're in a different league. And I kind of ceded that space to them and stayed in my cricket. But obviously, I know about the Kochi Blasters, and in my own constituency, I've been strongly supporting over the years a remarkable little football team of slum children, basically fisher folk from the poorest communities on the seacoast in Kovalam, called the Kovalam Football Club, which has been doing extremely well. And this year has made it to the Final Four of the Kerala Premier League, despite coming from nothing. There's a philanthropist called T.J. Matthew and his American wife Sally, who have put in their labor of love to give these guys, create a hostel for them so they can have meals and training and so on. And just sheer hard work and talent. It's remarkable to see how much can be done. I've been begging all my ambassadorial friends in Delhi to come and give us free coaches from any of these big football playing countries. So far it hasn't worked out, but I'm hoping something will come.
Okay, now I've got two googlies for you. One is going to be a little serious, the other one is not. So the serious one. Now, we've been seeing that you and Foreign Minister Jaishankar, you've shared sort of a bonhomie. There was that picture from the Raisina dialogue last year. You even congratulated him and his team for the stance that they'd taken in that UNSC anti-humanitarian aid resolution. What is your take on Foreign Minister Jaishankar being this diplomatic yet combative foreign minister, especially his stance on Russian oil imports, and when he said that comment which went viral where he said that Europe's problems are not the world's problems?
No, I think what he meant was there shouldn't be double standards. That was the key issue. And I think when you look at this business, of course, Europe's problems, unfortunately, are the world's problems, because the Ukraine war has impacted people everywhere, not just in Europe. We've had food prices going up, fuel prices going up, commodity prices generally being devastated. There are debt crises and financial crises in countries as far afield as Peru and Bolivia and Sri Lanka and Pakistan because of the Ukraine war, indirectly or directly, because of the consequences of the Ukraine war. So how can you say that Europe's problems are not the world's problems? What he meant was Europe must stop thinking that whenever something happens in Europe, the whole world is obliged to react and support them. Whereas when something happens here, we find silence from the Europeans. So when the Chinese come and kill 20 of our soldiers, how many Europeans spoke up for us? When the Pakistanis send us militants and terrorists who kill Indians, do we get anything more than routine sort of two-line sort of criticisms from the spokesman of their foreign ministries? Where is the concern? And yet when we similarly decide we will measure our own interests, we are criticized for not doing what's morally the right thing to do. Now, I say this with understanding of his position, but as somebody who even in Parliament was the one dissenting voice on our policy. I did feel that we should have condemned the Ukraine war because it was a violation of principles we have stood for 75 years as an independent country. The sovereignty of states, the sanctity of the UN Charter, the inviolability of borders, and the inadmissibility of the use of force to settle international disputes, all of which were violated by the Russians. And here we don't use the word war, we don't use the word invasion, we don't use the word Russia. I mean, what kind of lack of courage is that? That I don't agree with.
I'll circle back to my question about what is your opinion about Foreign Minister Jaishankar as the Foreign Minister of India? I
think he's very good. I think he's extremely... You see, it's an extremely interesting decision that the Prime Minister took, that this is a ministry that requires a specialist. And that too, not just a specialist who happens to be a politician, but a specialist who has come recently from that service, who spent a lifetime in that service, knows everything inside out, as somebody who's a practitioner who's working in that. And as a result, what you've seen, it seems to me, is a situation where the foreign minister has been able to hit the ground running in a way that a purely political minister would have perhaps not done in the same way. And certainly for my, in my estimation, the decision to appoint a bureaucrat in a political role raised a lot of eyebrows. But it seems to be a hallmark of Mr. Modi's style. There are many others in the government who are ex-bureaucrats. Hardeep Puri, for example. Okay, he's not a minister in a ministry that he worked in before. He's also a foreign ministry guy and he's working in urban development. Or you've got someone like former Home Secretary R.K. Singh, who's handling power. But, you know, he's seen them as efficient technocrats. And he says, okay, now you manage this portfolio and you know how the government works, work better. I think there's a certain logic to that, that perhaps other governments could learn by. And maybe this reflects my own bias, that I'm somebody who has always preferred the presidential system to the prime ministerial one, in the sense that in the presidential system, if you take the American example, you are able to appoint the most talented people to the portfolios of your cabinet without worrying about their electability. You worry about their ability, not their electability. Whereas in the parliamentary system, if you're not elected, then you can't be a minister. Whereas if you're elected, the skills to get you elected may not be the skills that you need to be a good minister.
Okay.
So what Mr. Modi does is he absolves people like my friend Jai Shankar of the need to go off and get elected. And he says, you do your job well, and I'll take care of putting you in one of the House of Parliament.
Right.
And that's an unusual, innovative departure from him.
I think we became too serious in that conversation, so I'm going to throw the soft googly at you. There's been a lot of talk about ChatGPT, the AI bot.
Shall we walk? Because
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
your cameraman is getting bored with the backdrop.
What is your
Flowers are
take?
brighter on this side.
What do you think about artificial intelligence? Do you think that they can one day take over the job that you and your fellow politicians do?
No, because the problem with ChatGPT is it's very rational, and politics is an irrational profession. So you need human irrationality, human fallibility, human prejudice, human biases, human weaknesses for politics to be truly politics. So I don't think they can come into this job, but I'll tell you where it's useful. It's now eliminating a lot of grunge work,
Yes.
but at the same time, what worries me is not the big transcendent worry that they'll take over the whole world and rule us, which is a worry that some people seem to have. What worries me much more is that they will make us mentally lazy.
Oh,
in the sense
okay.
that, let's say, okay, in my childhood I knew a heck of a lot by heart. I'm not saying that's very good, because these days you don't need to know anything by heart. You can find out with 2 clicks of the mouse. But the truth is that there is something wonderful about the fact that you see a particular phrase and you immediately know, because you've learned that phrase, which particular verse it comes from, or which playwright, or what the allusion is, and how it's being used or misused or cleverly subverted by the person who's using it today. That joy is going to go. Secondly, I think if you don't have, in a serious sort of way, the person actually taking the trouble to dig up some information, compare it to other sources of information they've got, and make some inferences from this. The whole business of synthesizing knowledge that human beings do. If a machine or a computer is doing it for you, what are you going to be using your mind for in the end? And that's something I do worry about a little bit. Especially, my own kids are now past that stage, but my grandkids will be growing up in a world of all this. And I wonder whether they're going to be somehow made mentally less sharp. Now, I suspect my kids are going to be insisting that they don't take these shortcuts early on, that they will actually have to learn the hard way. But I think more and more people, I'm already told, not only that people are cheating in exams with these things, or where you're submitting papers to universities, the papers are being written by ChatGPT. But I've heard that in London, publishing houses are discovering entire manuscripts have been submitted.
Absolutely.
Written by an algorithm. Now, that's pretty awful, right? I mean, that's not, the joy of creation is gone. I think increasingly human beings are going to have to be things and learn to do things that machines cannot do, that computers cannot do. That's going to be the challenge for the next generation.
Okay, I think Nikhil still has a few questions left in his...
Yeah, coming back to Hindi again, because again...
And with his person breathing down my back, I can see him trying to tell me our time is almost up. But
so last few questions, quickly. So, you just said you watched your first cricket match when you were 7. मैंने कहीं पढ़ा कि you started writing your first book when you were 6. How true is this?
सही है, क्योंकि मैं तो asthmatic था. मैं तो पलंग पे लेटे हुए, unable to breathe. तो इस हालत में क्या करूं? उस वक्त तो उस ज़माने में तो टेलीविज़न नहीं था बॉम्बे में. मेरे ख्याल में दिल्ली में शायद था, लेकिन बॉम्बे में तो नहीं था, और कोई और दूसरे शहर में नहीं था टेलीविज़न. ना निंटेंडो या मोबाइल फ़ोन या लैपटॉप या कंप्यूटर, कोई भी. तो अगर आप बीमार थे, आपको सांस नहीं मिल रही थी ठीक तरह से, आप खेल नहीं पाते थे, तो क्या करेंगे? पलंग पे लेट के किताब ही पढ़ सकते. तो किताब पढ़ के जितने भी मेरे पिताजी के घर में थे मैं पढ़ चुका था, इंक्लूडिंग थिंग्स आई कुडंट अंडरस्टैंड, जो मैं समझ नहीं सका क्योंकि एडल्ट किताबें थे. मेरे ऊपर तो कोई बड़े भाई बहन नहीं थी. तो इसलिए मैंने क्या किया, मैं खुद लिखने शुरू कर दिया कि अगर किताब नहीं है पढ़ने के लिए तो मैं खुद लिखूं. और ये तो इनर ब्लाइटन वाली कहानियाँ बचपन के बच्चों के लिए, इस किस्म की कहानियाँ. लेकिन मैं वो उन्हीं that style of stories, लेकिन भारतीय context में, कि जैसे कि हम बचपन में बॉम्बे से हर साल केरला जाते थे, तो एक इनल ब्लाइटन के ब्रिटिश गांव के अलावा कोई केरला गांव में कोई मिस्ट्री सॉल्व कर रहे थे मेरे कैरेक्टर्स.
And 22 की उम्र में, when you were 22, you completed your PhD also. And the vocabulary everyone knows. How do you remember these words? A lot of people before I came here especially had this request that I should ask you. All our parents have been feeding us 5 badams a day. What's your recipe?
Actually, I'm not a big fan of badam, sadly, so I'm not sure I can recommend that or not. Pata nahi yaar, I mean, sometimes some things interest you more than others, and I guess words, language, reading, all of that, bachpan se hi mujhe bahut shauk tha. So it's because of that I ended up with all of this. And honestly, I didn't mug up dictionaries at any stage of my life. I just read so much that you come across the same word in 3 different books, you'll figure out the meaning. You'll figure out from the context how it's used, how it should not be used, etc. So that way, my vocabulary is entirely owed to the fact that I have so many different books sort of under my belt, particularly in my childhood. Because in adulthood, we all get busy. We all have work, responsibilities, social lives, multiple other engagements, distractions, and now, of course, technology has given us so many demands. I've reached a stage where I literally, I used to be at one point very good at replying to emails. Now my reputation is gone because I have so many WhatsApps coming in that I don't see the emails. Yeah.
No,
Pallavi once sent me a question by email. I didn't see the question till after the entire thing she was asking about was over. क्या करूं? Email देखने के लिए भी time नहीं मिल रहा.
So, internet has now reached almost everyone on their mobile phones. 5 years ago, 6 years ago, did you used to get calls from people asking for meanings, thinking that you are their dictionary?
That has not happened, thank God. But I've also frankly had to adopt a very undemocratic practice. I don't answer numbers I don't recognize, because I get a lot of pointless calls that if literally I would spend the entire day on the phone if I answered every call.
Okay, so last question, and I'm gonna give you some Hindi words, and you will have to tell us. These are simple words. I am sure you must have heard them. You'll have to give us an English translation for them. I mean, just the one word that you have for them. So the first one is Sahasra Chakra Lohpat Gamini. I'm sure you know that.
Sahasra Chakra Lohpat Gamini must be a railway train, no? Okay.
Right. Avan Javan Suchak Patika.
Avan Javan Suchat Patika. Avan Javan is coming, going. Suchak is inquiry. And Patika is, I suppose, a newsletter, schedule, something like that. What is it, timetable?
It's a traffic signal.
Traffic signal, much better. Very good, okay.
Okay. Kant Langot.
That's a tie.
Even in some Hindi movie also, I remember.
Okay. This is a little difficult. Vidyut Prakashit Kanch Golak.
Vidyut is electricity, no? Vidyut Prakashak Kanch
Golak.
Kanch is glass.
Okay, the same question goes to Pallavi also, if she can answer.
Bulb?
Yeah. Yeah.
Not bad.
Not well done.
That's the Tharoor effect on me. I have to ask you this question before I let you go. So the joke inside the Congress office, because I cover Congress, is there's a Congress and there's a Tharoor.
What is that supposed to mean?
You're a rebel.
Who have I rebelled against, Baba?
That you are different from what the Congress party is all about.
The funniest thing is they'll have to point out where specifically, on what ideological issue, on what question of principle, they would say they're different from me. Because it's true that my ideas and principles and convictions predate my entry into the Congress, which is only 14 years ago. Before that, I was an independent, free-thinking spirit. I criticized the Congress as well, but always from a core base of liberal convictions, faith in Indian diversity and pluralism, and a strong belief in the ideals of the Constitution. All of that has not changed. I brought those convictions to the Congress. If tomorrow the Congress says you don't belong here and they kick me out, I'll still have the same convictions and ideals. I don't change. My convictions and ideals don't change. I'm not a politician who will cheerfully advocate one set of policies and then switch to the opposite party that he has been attacking all along and then advocate the opposite set of principles. I'm not like that. So my principles will not change. Why does the Congress, who in the Congress thinks that I don't belong
We'll
there?
talk about that some other day. These are
Off the
sources and these are
camera.
off the camera. I'm going to let actually your fellow Malayalam.
Malayali.
Okay,
This
okay.
is where you're supposed to use the word Malayali.
Okay, this is fellow Malayali to actually wind up this lovely chat we've had with you. Over to you, Edwin.
Well, sir, first of all,
And in you have to talk in Malayalam.
Malayalam. Wow, my Malayalam is terrible. I've heard you speak in Malayalam, sir, and I think it's fantastic.
Thank you.
And
And
for a guy,
Moonlal ka bhi acha hai, Mammootty ka bhi acha hai.
I know, वो तो OGs, ma'am. Can't beat them. So, Sare, thank you very much for talking to us. ഇതൊരു നല്ല interaction ആയിരുന്നു നമ്മുടെ ഇടയ്ക്ക്. Do you have any message for the people of Kerala? Because we wanted something in Malayalam for our Malayalam channel. So if you could...
കേരളക്കാർക്ക് എന്നെ നല്ലോണം അറിയാം. ഞാൻ കുറേയായി ഓടി നടക്കുന്ന സംസ്ഥാനത്തിൽ കേരളം ഒരു നല്ലൊരു സ്ഥലമാണ്. കേരളം ശരിക്ക് പല വിധത്തിലും ഒരു ഉദാഹരണമാണ്. ഭാരതം മുഴുവൻ കേരളത്തെ പോലെ ആയാൽ കേരളത്തിനെ ഗുണം ചെയ്യും. ഞാനെപ്പോഴും വള്ളത്തോളിന് രണ്ട് വരി എപ്പോഴും പറഞ്ഞുകൊണ്ടിരിക്കും. എന്താണ്? ഭാരതമെന്ന് കേട്ടാൽ അഭിമാനപൂരിതമാവണം അന്തരംഗം. കേരളമെന്ന് കേട്ടാൽ തിളയ്ക്കണം ചോര നമ്മുടെ ഞരമ്പുകളിൽ. Adana says that when you hear
You're saying Kerala's the
Bharat, your heart must
Yeah.
swell with pride, but when you hear Kerala, the blood must throb in your veins.
Bengal
That's the
throbs
message.
in my veins.
Yes.
There you are. Well, I'm telling you, he wants a message for the
he's
Kerala.
a Malayali nationalist, you know, the way a Malayali is supposed to be.
Okay.
So again, thanks a lot for
Thank you
joining
so
us for
much.
this interaction. This was
Yeah, we chased you
really...
for 2 months.
Yeah, and this was very enlightening.
And
I
well
mean,
worth it.
yeah, absolutely. Thanks a lot.